Well, Justin Herbert looked like an MVP, Lamar and Allen stayed elite, and a few other names completely shocked us in week 1. Now, the question is, who can actually back it up in week 2? Here are our top 20 quarterback rankings. What's up, Headliner Nation? My name is Brad, the Rankings King, and before we dive into this week's rankings, just a reminder that these are the consensus rankings between Jake and Kyle. Now, if you're looking for more detailed analysis, that can actually be found in the start-sit videos that have already been posted on the channel, so be sure to check those out. And if you're a sicko like me and you want even more breakdowns each week, be sure to join the Fantasy Headliners community by hitting the join button below. That's going to get you access to extra rankings like flex, kicker, defense, and a spot in our Discord, which was on fire this week. So I think that you're going to love it. Now, before we jump into the top 20 rankings, we've got a few hits and misses from week 1. First up, we've got Brock Purdy, and we had him just outside the top 12, and people said that we were hating on him. Well, boo-boo, he finished as QB 14. Then we've got Jordan Love. This is another guy that we had a little lower in the rankings despite all the weapons that he has, and he ended up QB 18. And then Patrick Mahomes. We know that he isn't that top 3 guy anymore, and missing Rashee Rice certainly wasn't going to help, but we still kept him in the top 8, and he finished at QB 6, so properly ranked. All right, so that's the hits. Now let's get into the misses. What about Daniel Jones? Come on, I don't think anybody on earth expected what we saw from Daniel Jones in week 1. And honestly, we don't trust it until we see it again. And then Justin Herbert. Hey, we really expected LA to focus on the run way more in a Friday night game in Brazil, but then they just threw it with ease all game, and then Herbert looked like an MVP. Be very clear, we will not be making this mistake again. And then, what about our Aaron Rodgers? Dude turned back the clock and he looked like vintage Rodgers. And we've got to ask ourselves, is this the new normal, or was week 1 just a shootout that we're not going to get very often? Only time will tell. All right, let's get into tier number 1. We've got Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Jayden Daniels, and Justin Herbert. First up, we've got Josh Allen going against the New York Jets. And this just in, Josh Allen is very good at football. And the Jets just allowed over 25 fantasy points to an offense led by a 41-year-old quarterback in Arthur Smith. Plus, on top of that, we've got Josh Allen having the receiving weapons in 2025 to flirt with 5,000 passing yards for the first time in his career. That's why he's at number 1. Then we've got Lamar Jackson. And Cleveland just shut down Joe Burrow and the Bengals passing offense in week 1. And Lamar typically has found success against Cleveland. He scored 20-plus fantasy points in each of their games last year, and it also helps that this game is at home. That's why we've got him at number 2. Then coming at the number 3 spot, we've got Jalen Hurts, a Super Bowl matchup against Kansas City in week 2, and Hurts dominated in that Super Bowl game, and we saw Justin Herbert look like an MVP against these same Chiefs in week 1, and there's no reason to think that Hurts can't excel in this matchup again. What about Joe Burrow coming in at number 4? He struggled against Cleveland in week 1, and the offensive line just could not stop Myles Garrett. And this Jacksonville pass rush is solid too, with guys like Walker and Armstead and Hines Allen. Bottom line, this Bengals offensive line has got to play better. And then up next, we've got Jayden Daniels. And this is not going to be a cakewalk matchup for Jayden Daniels either. Green Bay just held Jared Goff to just under 12 fantasy points, and even still, we think it will help that Daniels' rushing upside is going to raise his floor some over a quarterback like Jared Goff. And then Justin Herbert. We already said he looked like an MVP in week 1, and LA was throwing the ball all over the place at will, and we think that they're going to continue to do so. So Herbert has this slight rushing upside that most people don't talk about. And on top of that, Drake May almost hung 300 yards on this same Raiders defense last week. So lock him in at tier 1 for the foreseeable future. Now, before we head into the next tier, we've got to make sure that you've got an account on Underdog. We've been crushing those player pick'ems on Underdog this year, and this is the time that you need to sign up. Just head over to Underdog Fantasy or download the app, create a new account, and use the referral code Headliners when you do so. And then just make your initial deposit and come join a contest. Guess what? You're going to get a first-time deposit bonus and a free player pick'em, and Jake is going to be breaking down all the best picks weekly in a show on Fridays to help you get some of that cash money. So links to join are in the description below, and we look forward to playing with you in 2025. All right, next up, we've got Tier 2. That's Kyler Murray, Justin Fields, Drake May, Baker Mayfield, Dak Prescott, Caleb Williams, Patrick Mahomes, and Trevor Lawrence. Let's start with Kyler Murray. Is Carolina the toughest matchup? No. But they do need credit for holding the Jags offense and Brian Thomas to minimal production. We need to keep Kyler running, though, because the passing volume in Arizona seems like it's going to stay on the lower side. Then coming in at number 8, we've got Justin Fields. And we were really impressed with what we saw from Fields in week 1. Now, if we have any concerns, it's really his lack of overall weapons in the passing game outside of Garrett Wilson right now. But the rushing upside remains really solid, and we're hoping that it's going to continue. Up next, we've got Drake May going into Miami this week. And Drake May is coming off a Verge 300-yard passing day, and now he's going to get a Miami defense that just got torched by Daniel Jones. That new New England offense is going to be throwing the ball a ton, and if Daniel Jones could be the QB3 overall against Miami, so could Drake May. Hey, what about Baker Mayfield? We already know Emeka Egbuka is him. And man, he helps Baker a ton. Now, sure, the yardage looked like it was a little down in week 1, but the multi-touchdown upside is there weekly. And Baker once again showed that he's going to continue adding a slight rushing upside with 39 yards in week 1. That's why we've got him locked in at the top 10. Next up, we've got Dak Prescott. And if you look at just the stat line, Dak sucked. But if you watch him actually play, the dude looked great. His stat line was affected by some big drops, and that is going to get cleaned up. And we're looking for more quick-hitting plays this week due to that Giants pass rush. How about Caleb Williams? Listen, it might not have been pretty, but we only care about fantasy points here. And if we saw anything last week, it's that between all the pass-catching weapons and Caleb's ability to scramble, he should be a mainstay as a Verge top 12 quarterback weekly. And then next up is Patrick Mahomes. I know it's crazy, right? Kansas City just can't seem to keep its wide receivers on the field. It's injuries and suspension, friendly fire. It's always something. Rice is still out. Worthy may miss time. And now it's up to Juju, Hollywood, and old man Kelsey to take on Philly. Not exactly ideal. Next up, we've got Trevor Lawrence going into Cincinnati. And obviously, the production wasn't great in week 1, but having a long weather delay is a nightmare to players, and they get a chance to go up against a weak Bengals defense looking for a game to jumpstart the offense. All right, that's tier number 2. Let's jump into tier number 3. We've got Jared Goff, Bo Nix, Aaron Rodgers, JJ McCarthy, Michael Penix Jr., and Jordan Love. Let's start it out at number 15 with Jared Goff. We've talked numerous times this offseason that the Lions could start slow, and guess what? It's happening. But even though the Bears defense looked solid for 3 quarters, JJ McCarthy took over. Now, Goff's ceiling might be a little bit lower, but he still has a shot at a solid floor in week number 2. Next up, we've got Bo Nix going into Indianapolis, and there's a lot of disappointment after his week 1 game. Having 3 turnovers, it's a killer to fantasy lineups. And now Ingram's dealing with a calf issue, and they've got the Colts who shut down Miami in week 1. So we would exercise a little bit of caution here with Bo Nix. And come on, how about Aaron Rodgers? He looked like his old self, like it was 2015, 244 yards, 4 passes passing touchdowns against the Jets in week 1. Now, I doubt that Pittsburgh is going to get into a weekly shootout, but Rodgers is feeling himself, and now he gets a Seattle defense who just allowed 18.8 fantasy points to Brock Purdy. Next up, we've got the comeback kid himself, J.J. McCarthy. And listen, it started off bad. He looked more like Zach Wilson than a franchise quarterback, but then the fourth quarter came and he seemed to think less and react more. And you saw it. It led to a comeback and hopefully more confidence going forward this week against Atlanta. Then, speaking of Atlanta, we've got Michael Penix Jr., and he looked solid week 1 against Tampa Bay, but now he gets a tough matchup against Minnesota. And we saw Caleb go for over 20 fantasy points against them last week, but the bigger concern is the health of Drake London and Daryl Mooney this week, so it's a wait and see when it comes to Penix. And then rounding out our top 20, we've got Jordan Love. And for Love, it's all about the injuries that Green Bay is currently dealing with. Multiple offensive linemen are currently questionable due to injury, and Dontavion Wicks, Matthew Golden, Jaden Reed, they all have injuries that they are nursing this week, and that keeps him at number 20. All right, that's tier number 3. Let's look at the ones that are the outside looking in. We've got CJ Stroud, Geno Smith, Daniel Jones, Matthew Stafford, Bryce Young, Tua Tagovailoa, and Joe Flacco. That's your week 2 quarterback rankings. And look, yeah, it's quite the game of musical chairs, but hey, now it's your turn. Who's too high? Who's too low? Who is the quarterback that you are trusting and believing in for week 2? Be sure to drop all your thoughts, your questions in the comments. Smash that like button, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end rankings right here on the channel every single week. Appreciate you, Headliner Nation, and we'll see you in the next video.
Analytics off the chain, other channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headliner Nation, we running the game.